This month we're going to be doing verse 13 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. This is the last of a series of 4 verses in which Bhagavan is talking about arivu, or knowledge, or ñāṇa, awareness. One of the primary things he's doing in all these 4 verses, he is drawing a very important distinction which is often overlooked. It's not, you don't find this discussed so clearly by people who are talking about Advaita philosophy. People talk about consciousness or awareness, whatever. But there is, basically there are 2, awareness appears in 2 forms. The real form of awareness, according to Bhagavan, is not awareness of anything, but just pure awareness. Of course, pure awareness entails being aware that one is aware, and being aware that one is aware entails being self-aware. So, I mean, if we're pure awareness is not aware of anything other than itself, but itself is not an object of its awareness. It is just aware I am. That is I mean, we can't, no words can capture it. It is just pure awareness. Awareness just of being aware, of being I am. Whereas what we generally call awareness is awareness of something, awareness of phenomena, awareness of objects. We generally take waking and dream to be states of awareness. And we take sleep to be a state of unconsciousness or ignorance. Bhagavan says actually the opposite is the case. Sleep is a state of pure awareness, pure knowledge, perfect knowledge in sleep, and complete ignorance in waking and dream. When Bhagavan said that waking and dream are complete ignorance, he doesn't mean that the knowledge is, or the real awareness is totally obscured, because we're always aware I am. But we are not aware just, we are not just aware I am. Firstly, we're aware of ourselves as I am this or I am that. We now take ourselves to be a person. I am Michael. In sleep, I'm aware of myself without being aware of Michael. So Michael is not what I actually am. But in waking and dream, I seem to be Michael. Michael is just an arbitrary name. It could be any name. And that name is a name applied to a form, to a body. So in waking and dream, we all experience ourselves as a body. And along with the body comes, as Bhagavan says in verse 5 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, Ulu Panchakosa Ulu, the body consists of 5 sheaths. The body is a form of 5 sheaths. Because we never experience ourselves as a body without experiencing that body as being alive. Nobody has ever felt I am a dead body. We are aware of not only of this physical body, we're also aware of the life in this body. And we are only aware of this body in a state that seems to us to be waking. Whether it's waking or dreaming, even when we're dreaming, we seem to be awake. So, because we're awake, whenever we experience awake in inverted commas, that it's not real awakening, but we are aware of ourselves as the body, and therefore we are awake in that sense. Being aware of ourselves as a body entails having a mind, and having a mind entails having an intellect. So that's 4 of the sheaths. The physical form of the body is the annamaya kosha, the life in the body, the breath and the heartbeat and all the metabolic processes that are going on, all the activities in the body, life processes or whatever, and also all the actions of our limbs and everything, how our limbs are able to move, because there's a life in this body. So that is pranamaya kosha. And there's a mind which is thinking many thoughts, that is manomaya kosha. There's an intellect which is judging. This is true, this is untrue. It's that power of distinguishing things. That is the intellect. That's just more subtle than the mere thinking of the mind. For example, if one person says 2 plus 2 equals 4, and someone else says, no, 2 plus 2 equals 5, we are able to distinguish which is true and which is false. We at once recognize, no, 2 plus 2 must be 4, it's not 5. That distinguishing power of the mind is what is called intellect, the buddhi, or the vijñānamaya kosha. So this is happening all the time. So all these 4 sheaths are there. But underlying all of these 4 sheaths, there is another sheath. That sheath is our self-ignorance. If we were aware of ourselves as we actually are, we wouldn't be aware of ourselves with this body. So we have to be ignorant of what we actually are in order to be aware of ourselves as I am this or I am that. So that is the fundamental sheath. It's what is sometimes called the anandamaya kosha or the karana sarira. For whom are all these sheaths? For whom all these sheaths make up a body? Who is it who says all this body is I? That is the ego. So the ego is even subtler than the karana sarira. Karana sarira is one of the coverings, one of the sheaths, one of the koshas that cover the ego. Or let's say that the ego covers itself with these sheaths. Why it covers itself with these sheaths? If it doesn't cover itself with these sheaths, it will be aware of itself as it really is. So it takes on all these and says, I am this. I am this body. I am alive. I am thinking. I am distinguishing. I am discriminating. And I don't know what I'm aware of myself as this, therefore I don't know what I actually am. The karana sarira is also said to be, not only is it the darkness of self-ignorance, it's also said to be the storehouse of all the vasanas. That is where all our likes and dislikes, our desires and fears, they're all embedded in the karana sarira. So these are all things that the ego takes on itself. The ego doesn't exist independent of these 5 sheaths. As Bhagavan says in verse 25, Urupatri yondam. Urupatri means grasping form. What form is it? It's a form, this 5-sheath form of the body. So grasping form, it comes into existence. Urupatri nikvam. Grasping form, it stands. Like it exists by, first it grasps a form in order to come into existence, then it continues grasping form in order to exist. So the form is, the first form it grasps is these 5 sheaths that constitute the body, and then through the sense of this body, it's aware of so many physical phenomena, it thinks so many thoughts about this. So all phenomena are forms that are being grasped by the ego. Awareness of phenomena is grasping form. So grasping form it stands, and grasping form, urupatri undu miha ongon. That's grasping and feeding on forms. It flourishes, it grows, and it expands, and it flourishes. Uruvittu urupatram, leaving one form, it grasps another form. Throughout the waking and dream state, the mind is never for a moment, the ego is never for a moment stands without grasping something. So leaving one form, it grasps another form. And if now it's grasping this body as I, sooner or later this body is going to wear out and die. If it lasts that long, or it could, an accident could happen, disease could come, so many things. Anyway, one thing we're all sure about, one day this body will die. But so if the ego doesn't die with the death of the body, it will rise again and project. This body is just a projection. The body doesn't exist independent of the ego will project another body. And so it goes on. So the only time the ego leaves all forms is when it falls asleep. But when it falls asleep, it itself ceases to exist. So as long as the ego is existing, it's grasping one form or another. And leaving one form, it grasps some other form. So this is the nature of the ego. I'm going off into a bit of a tangent, but that is because all these verses of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu are so closely interconnected. So according to Bhagavan, this awareness of forms, awareness of phenomena, this is not real awareness. This is the message, this is what he analyzes and he emphasizes in these series of 4 verses in Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, verses 10, 11, 12 and 13. I will read the previous 3 verses in order to build up to this present verse that we're going to discuss today. In verse 10, Bhagavan says, literal meaning is, leaving ignorance, knowledge does not exist. Here Bhagavan uses the word leaving, viṭṭu, in the sense of without. So without ignorance, knowledge does not exist. The knowledge and ignorance he's talking about here is knowledge and ignorance of phenomena, of things other than ourselves. So without knowledge, without ignorance, knowledge does not exist. Without knowledge, ignorance doesn't exist. In other words, these are dire. They're a pair of opposites. One has a meaning only because of the other. And then he says in the next sentence, only the knowledge that knows oneself, who is the first, by investigating to whom are that knowledge and ignorance, is knowledge. Here what he means by oneself is the ego, because it's only the ego who has knowledge and ignorance. But he says only the knowledge that knows oneself. The implication here is only the knowledge that knows the reality of oneself. The reality of the ego. If we know the reality of the ego, in other words, if we know what we really are, we'll know the ego as such does not actually exist. And since the ego is what knows knowledge and ignorance, knowledge and ignorance will cease to exist along with it, as he says in the next verse. So only the knowledge that knows the implication is the reality of the ego, who is the first to arise, by investigating to whom are this knowledge and ignorance. So who is it who knows all these phenomena? All these phenomena, this world, and so many, all these things, they seem very real to us. Because we now take ourselves with this body, which is a part of this world, we are real. Because we take this body to be I, the body seems to be real. And because this body is a part of the whole world seems to be real. When we leave one body and take another body, then we are able to recognize the previous state as a state of dream. But so long as we are dreaming a dream, it all seems to be real. It doesn't seem to be a dream while we're dreaming. It seems to be waking. So Bhagavan says, what is real knowledge? Real knowledge is only the knowledge that knows the reality of oneself. That is that's a point he's emphasizing in all these verses, but he says it there in verse 10. In verse 11 he says, without knowing oneself who knows, knowing other things is ignorance. Again, without knowing oneself implies without knowing the reality of oneself. Because oneself who knows, that means who knows things other than oneself, is the ego. When we know the ego is a very strange thing. As Bhagavan says, it's a formless phantom. We seem to be this ego only so long as we're aware of other things. It's like if we were walking in a dark forest at night, there may be a little bit of moonlight or starlight coming through the leaves of the trees, so we see shadows and the movements of light around us. We think, we may fear that these are there are ghosts in the forest. I know we may at any moment be caught by a ghost or something, so we may be feeling some fear. We feel fear only so long as we don't look at those ghosts closely. If we look at any of them, what seems to be ghosts, if we look at them very closely, we'll see, oh, it's just a bit of moonlight coming through the trees and reflecting on the leaves or whatever. we'll see, but they're not real. They're not really ghosts when we look at them closely. But if we're not looking at them closely, if we're not looking directly at them, catching them out of the corner of our eyes, it looks like there's ghostly movements around us in the forest. The ego is like that. When we look at other things, we seem to be this ego. But when we look at the ego, it ceases to exist. We find there's no such thing. We cannot find an ego. So when Bhagavan says without knowing oneself, that it means either without knowing the reality of oneself, without knowing what we actually are, or without knowing the non-existence of oneself, him in ego. So without knowing the non-existence of the ego, or without knowing the reality of oneself, it amounts to the same, because when we know what we actually are, we'll know that we are not this ego, and if the ego is just a wrong knowledge of ourselves, when we know what we actually are, we'll know there never was any ego, because we'll know we've always known what we actually are. So what Bhagavan is saying in these verses is very, very subtle, but we have to understand correctly. In many English translations, they put without knowing the self who knows. They put the self with a D, which is, there's no word for D in English, T-H-E, I mean in Tamil, there's no equivalent of T-H-E in Tamil, and there's no capital letters. So all the Bhagavan is actually saying is without knowing oneself. But if we translate it without knowing the self, that implies that the self is what knows other things. But Bhagavan says knowing other things is ignorance in the same sentence. So it's just a lot of the English translations, if we read them, they really don't make a lot of sense if we think deeply about them, which is because the real inner meaning of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, because the Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu hasn't been properly explained in English, most people don't really understand what Bhagavan is, what exactly Bhagavan is teaching us. And so what Bhagavan teaches in Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu is really radical philosophy and very, very revolutionary. Though it's all there in Advaita Vedanta, but Advaita Vedanta is so full of so many unnecessary concepts. It's so complex. Whereas Bhagavan has taken the simple essence out of all the. We could go on reading Advaitic texts and commentaries on commentaries, and we could spend a lifetime studying all these things and not really understand. But Bhagavan has taken the essence of all these things and put it in all these Nāṛpadu. How Bhagavan was able to do this? He didn't even read all those. Bhagavan probably hadn't read all the Upanishads. I'm sure he hadn't read Shankara's commentaries or anything like this. From direct experience, he knew what the truth is. He put his own experience there, and we say this is the essence of Advaita Vedanta. But Bhagavan has not only has he simplified and thereby clarified it, he's also presenting it in a very, very, in Advaita, for example, it is said the whole problem is avidya. Avidya means ignorance. But for whom is avidya? After Shankara wrote all his commentaries, among his disciples there were two schools of thought. And this went on for centuries after Shankara. There were two prominent schools of thought among the Shankara Advaitins. One school of thought, the fundamental problem, if there's ignorance, for whom is ignorance? Is ignorance for the jiva or is ignorance for Brahman? This was the dispute that went on. Some of them, one group said, no, Brahman cannot be ignorant, so ignorance must be for the jiva. But the other group said, no, if the ignorance is for the jiva, that means the jiva must perceive the ignorance. But ignorance is the fundamental cause. So it cannot be, it must be Brahman but must be ignorant. So there will be two schools. This is after Shankara wrote all his commentaries. So that means there wasn't sufficient clarity. Bhagavan has simplified everything, saying ignorance is only for the ego. The very nature of the ego is ignorance. Ignorance and ego are not two different things. The ego rises because of the ego is a wrong awareness of what we actually are, and that wrong awareness is ignorance. So again, sorry, I'm slightly branching off. So coming back to this verse 11, what Bhagavan says, without knowing oneself who knows, knowing other things is ignorant. Here Bhagavan very clearly says, knowing anything other than ourselves is ignorance. Some people may misinterpret this sentence and say, well, Bhagavan says, without knowing oneself, knowing other things is ignorance. So we can know, if we know ourselves, then knowing other things is not ignorant. That is not the meaning that Bhagavan intended, because as Bhagavan made very clear in so many places, if we know what we actually are, there's nothing else for us to know. He says it very clearly, I think, in verse 31. He says, how to understand the state of those who know nothing else, who don't know any other thing. So what Bhagavan is very, very clearly saying here, knowing other things, in other words, knowing objects, knowing phenomena, knowing anything other than ourselves is ignorance. aññāṇamān, he says. Besides, I mean, other than ignorance, can it be knowledge? No, it's only ignorance. When one knows oneself, the support for knowledge and the other here means ignorance. So when one knows oneself, the support for knowledge and ignorance will cease. Here oneself means the ego. So when we know either the reality of the ego or the non-existence of the ego, which amount to the same thing, because if we know the reality of the ego, we'll know that's knowing what we actually are. We will know the ego never existed. So so long as we fail to see that the ego doesn't exist, we're in ignorance. When we know the non-existence of the ego, and since the ego is the support for knowledge and ignorance will cease. And when we know the truth of the ego, we'll know the ego doesn't exist, and therefore knowledge and ignorance of other things doesn't exist. Then in the next verse he says, what is devoid of knowledge and ignorance is actually knowledge. And in the Kalivemba extension, he says, he added an adverb here, what is arabay, what is completely devoid of knowledge and ignorance is actually knowledge. What he means here by knowledge and ignorance, again, is knowledge and ignorance of other things. What he means by knowledge is the pure awareness, the real awareness that we actually are. So here, what he implies here is that real awareness, what we actually are, is devoid of knowledge and ignorance. So that's why I started off by saying today that Bhagavan draws a very, very important distinction between real awareness and awareness of other things. Awareness of other things is sometimes called suttarivu. Suttarivu means pointing or showing awareness. The awareness that displays phenomena, the awareness of things other than ourselves, that is ignorance according to Bhagavan, not real knowledge. Real knowledge, real awareness is only pure self-awareness. And then he says, that which knows is not real knowledge. That which knows means ego or the mind. That is not real knowledge, or not real awareness. The word he uses here is arivu, which can mean knowledge or awareness. So the ego is not real awareness. Ego seems to be aware, it's aware of itself as I am Michael, or I am Kumar, or I am whoever, it doesn't matter the name, I am this or I am that. That is the nature of the ego, to know that. And it also always knows other things. So that, Bhagavan says, that is not real awareness. So the awareness of other things, as he said in the previous verse, knowing other things is ignorance. Since one, well, here there's no, the subject of this clause is implied, because if there's no actual, in Tamil, verbs can be used without nouns or pronouns. So we have to infer the subject of them. But since the subject of the main clause is oneself, tāṉ, we have to infer that is the subject of this. So since one self shines without another for knowing or for causing to know. Here oneself means oneself as one actually is, our real nature. Since our real nature shines without anything other, without another, either to know or to cause to know, oneself is knowledge. Oneself is That is, our real nature is awareness, is knowledge or awareness. And then again, the next sentence he said, parandu. Not, all that means is not void. What it means is oneself is not void. This is a repudiation of a certain type of Buddhist philosophy, but claimed that everything was svabhava sunya, devoid of any svabhava. Svabhava means any nature of its own, any real nature. Of course, phenomena, things, don't have any real nature. This body has no real nature of its own. It has no svabhava of its own. But what is the svabhava of all things is the one real svabhava, which is our own self. So we are not void, because as Bhagavan often said, our real nature is purna, it's infinite fullness. So that's verse 12. So now, after all this long detour, I finally come to the verse we are supposed to be talking about today, which is verse 13. In this verse, Bhagavan says, ñāṇamām tāṉēmey, nāṇāvā ñāṇam aññāṇamām, poyyāmañ aññāṇamumē, ñāṇamām taṉṇaiyaṉṭṛi iṉṭṛu, aññikaḻ ḍāmpalavum poymeyyām poṉṇaiyaṉṭṛi uṇḍō, puhal. What this means is, the first sentence is ñāṇamām tāṉēmey. ñāṇam means, generally ñāṇam is translated in English as knowledge, but it also means awareness. In this context it means what? Awareness. And so, whereas in the previous three verses Bhagavan was using a pure Tamil word, arivu, which means knowledge or awareness, here he's using the word ñāṇa, which means exactly the same as arivu. So, ñāṇamām tāṉē, that is oneself, who is awareness, and he says tān means oneself, tāṉē, a is a suffix, but it's an intensifier, it's an intensifying subject, a suffix. So tāṉē means oneself alone, oneself itself, oneself actually, it's an intensifying. So oneself who is awareness alone is real, is the implication. Or oneself who is awareness actually is real. So we alone are real, what Bhagavan is saying here. And what are we? We are just pure awareness, is the implication. In the Kalivemba version of this verse, Bhagavan extended this first sentence by adding a relative clause, sarivaya. That's two words, sarivu aya. It functions here as an adjective describing as ñāṇam. Sarivu is a noun that means thickness, denseness, closeness, abundance or fullness. And aya is a relative or adjectival participle that means which is. So sarivu aya, we can either take as a relative clause that means which is dense, abundant or full, or we can simply take it as an adjective that means dense, abundant or full. It means the same way, but it's better here to take it as an adjective, because otherwise we have to say oneself, who is awareness, which is dense, is alone is real. Rather than having a relative clause within a relative clause, we can simply take it as an adjective. So the whole sentence means sarivaya ñāṇamām tāṉēmey means oneself who is dense, abundant, full, clear awareness, alone is real. So Bhagavan is emphasizing nothing other than ourself is real. We alone are real, and what are we? We are just awareness. Not, as he clarified in the previous verse, we are not awareness of anything, we are just pure awareness. Awareness that is aware of nothing other than itself. To use a technical term of Western philosophy, but it's not used very clearly in Western philosophy. In Western philosophy, they sometimes distinguish between transitive and intransitive awareness. Transitive, these are words that they borrow from grammar. In grammar, you may be aware that verbs are, some verbs are transitive, some verbs are intransitive, and some verbs can be either transitive or intransitive. A transitive verb is a verb that takes an object. For instance, if you say, I fell, fall cannot take an object. You cannot say, I fall my pen. You can say you drop the pen, but you can't fall the pen. So fall is an intransitive verb. But if you say, I drop is a transitive verb. You can't say, I drop without dropping something. There must be something for you to drop. So borrowing these terms from grammar, they talk of transitive awareness and intransitive awareness. How they use it in Western philosophy is very confused. But because these are very useful terms to apply to Bhagavan's philosophy, because what Bhagavan is essentially saying is, real awareness is only intransitive awareness. That is awareness that is not aware of anything. Awareness of anything is transitive awareness. What is aware of things is ego or mind. That, according to Bhagavan, is just ignorance. As he said in some of the previous verses, and as he says very emphatically in the next sentence, nāṇāvā ñāṇam aññāṇamām. That literally means awareness that, here Bhagavan again is using ñāṇa in the sense of awareness. So, ñāṇāvā ñāṇam means awareness that is many, or awareness that is manifold. Awareness that is multiple is ignorance. What is the awareness that is many? It is the mind. The mind, the ego rises and expands as all the other thoughts, all the other phenomena. Everything is as Bhagavan said, everything is a thought. The whole world is nothing but thought, he says very clearly in nāṇā. So all phenomena are just thoughts. So they're all an expansion of the mind. So what he means by awareness that is manifold here is the mind, which branches out in so many thoughts. That, according to Bhagavan, is ignorance. Before I continue explaining this, it would be useful actually to give a little bit of history of this verse. Most of the verses were written during a 3-week period in the last half of July and the first week of August of 1928. And this was one of the verses that Bhagavan was writing at that time. All these verses were written at the request of Murugan, who asked Bhagavan, ñāṇamān adu tiranam. That is, he prayed to Bhagavan, so that we may be saved, reveal to us ñāṇamān adu tiranam. ñāṇamān means the nature of reality, adu tiranam means and the means to attain it. So what he wants to know is, what is the nature of reality? How do we attain it? So these verses Bhagavan wrote in answer to that. So on the 30th of July 1928, Bhagavan wrote this verse. But when he first wrote it, he wrote it in a slightly different form. Then later, to pack in more ideas, he modified it. So before we go on further, it's useful to read the original form, because that gives, particularly this sentence, it casts some more light on this. In the original form, in the first sentence, he said, ñāṇamān. That means awareness alone is real. The reason he changed it, because he's just talking there about awareness, but what awareness is that? He clarified it when he revised it. I mean, he revised it, he wrote it in one way, and then the same day he changed it. He, as we've seen, he changed it from ñāṇamān, ñāṇa alone is real, to ñāṇamām, tāṉēmey, oneself who is awareness alone is real. In this original version, he used the word aññāṛi, very, very clear. Aññāṛi means one. Aṇḍṛi means alone. So he's very clear, strongly emphasizing that meaning alone. In the revised version, it's just that one intensifier, tān, on the end of tān, we added a, taṉṇai. So this original version indicates that what he means by tāṉē is oneself alone. So he packed more meaning into this sentence by saying ñāṉamān tāṉēmey. Oneself who is awareness alone is real. Well, originally he had just said awareness alone is real. And then the next sentence, whereas in this version, the present version, it's nāṇāvā ñāṇam aññāṇamām. Knowledge which is multiple, which is many, is ignorance. What he means by knowledge which is many, as I said, obviously it implies the mind, because mind is the only awareness that becomes many. But he put it in a slightly different way in the original, which makes the idea more clear. nāṇāvā ñāṇam. That means the awareness that sees as many. What he said, there is actually only one thing, that is awareness, that is ourself. But there is some awareness that doesn't see, instead of seeing the one as it is, it sees the one as many. So the knowledge which sees as many, that means implied. There's no, what it sees as many is not explicitly stated here, but obviously it's implied, but sees the one. Because he says there's only one thing that actually exists, that is ourself, whose nature is awareness. So the awareness that sees as many is the ego, or mind, which sees the one thing, the one reality, as all these multiple phenomena, this vast universe with so much history, geography, physics, chemistry, biology, social sciences, philosophy, all this, the vast diversity of knowledge we have, and so many different phenomena we're aware of. All this is actually only one thing, that is just pure awareness. The one substance, the one porul or vastu, is awareness. So we see this awareness, which is our real nature, as all these multiple phenomena. So in the original version it says, nāṇāvā ñāṇam aññāṛi, nāṇāvā ñāṇam aññāṛi, iṉṭṛu aññāṇam. That means ignorance, which is not other than the knowledge, the awareness that sees as many, ñāṇamān, ñāṇamām, taṉṇai, aññāṛi, iṉṭṛu. So that ignorance, which is not other than the awareness that sees as many, doesn't exist except as oneself. That it doesn't exist independent of oneself. And then the rest of the verse is the same. So I don't need to go into the rest of the original form. So I'll just continue to explain that. Why I brought in this original form of this verse here, it does by saying, when Bhagavan says ñāṇamām taṉṇai, when he says nāṇāvā ñāṇam, that literally means awareness which is many. It's a very terse and cryptic way of putting it. So to understand exactly what he means, it's useful to refer back to this earlier version of the verse in which he said nāṇāvā ñāṇam, the awareness that sees as many. According to Bhagavan, that is only ignorance. So the mind or ego is only ignorance. And the nature of the mind or ego is to be aware of things other than itself. That awareness of other things, awareness of multiplicity, according to Bhagavan, that is only ignorance. But though it is ignorance, he clarifies in the next two sentences, or next three sentences. But what he says in the next sentence is, poyyāmañ aññāṇamay, ñāṇamām taṉṇai aññāṛi iṉṭṛu. That means even ignorance, which is unreal, does not exist except as oneself, who is awareness. What actually exists is only oneself, who is awareness, who is ñāṇa. But what seems to exist is this awareness of multiplicity, which Bhagavan says is ignorance. Bhagavan said this ignorance is not real. What is real is only oneself. But though it is not real, it doesn't exist apart from oneself, who alone is real and who is awareness. And for this he gives an analogy. If we take this analogy too literally, we can misinterpret it, but I'll discuss that afterwards. What he says in the analogy is, all the many ornaments are unreal. Why does he say the ornaments are unreal? We have a ring, we have a necklace, we have a pendant, we have earrings. So gold can take so many different forms, can be shaped into so many different ornaments. According to Bhagavan, those ornaments, they're just forms. They are unreal. Why are they unreal? Because they're transitory. The same piece of gold, one day it can be a ring, the next day it can be made into an earring, the next day it can become part of a necklace, the next day it can be melted and made into a gold brick. So the forms aren't real, according to Bhagavan. So all the many ornaments are unreal, he says in one sentence, and then in the next sentence he says, poyyāmañ poṉṉai aññāṛi uṇḍō. Do they exist except as gold, which is real? What is the relationship between gold and the ornament? Gold is the substance, ornament is the form. So Bhagavan says the forms are unreal, the substance is real. Some people could say, oh no, people could argue with this and say, oh no, well, a ring is as real as the gold of which it's made. In the world of phenomena, that may be that may appear to be the case, but Bhagavan we should understand the use Bhagavan is making of this analogy. According to Bhagavan, the substance is real, the form is unreal. That is what he's saying. And why he brings in this analogy here? Because what he's implying is real awareness, pure awareness, that's awareness that is not aware of anything, which is our real nature, that is the substance, that is the vastu, that is the polavum. The mind, which is awareness of many things, the awareness that sees that this one as many, that is not real. Poyyāmañ, ñāṉamān, it's unreal, but it doesn't exist apart from what is real. We can use another analogy here. The snake is unreal, but it cannot exist apart from the rope which is real. The snake is a mere appearance. What is actually there, what is the substance that is actually there, in the half light we can't see what it is, but it looks to us like a snake, so we get afraid. And that snake is wholly unreal. But there is an element of reality in it. That element of reality is what it actually is a rope. So the snake is unreal as a snake, but real as a rope. So also the ornaments are unreal as transitory forms, they're real as gold. So also the mind or ego is unreal as an awareness that knows many things, but it's real as its substance, which is pure awareness, which is not aware of anything. And then there's a small final sentence in which Bhagavan says, puhal, that means say. That's all the words in the verse. The implication of this is, though the ego or mind, which is the false awareness that sees itself as numerous phenomena, is ignorance and unreal, the real substance that appears as this ego or mind is only oneself, who is the true knowledge, pure awareness. So what actually exists is not the ego or mind, but only oneself. That is the implication of this verse. As I said, this analogy Bhagavan gives, no analogy can ever be perfectly analogous. So we have to understand the spirit of the analogy, and to make it clear, Bhagavan very, very clearly said that the ornaments, the many ornaments, are unreal. So he's using this analogy in the sense that ornaments being impermanent or unreal, the gold being, well, and of course, even gold will perish sooner or later, but relatively speaking, the gold is real. Bhagavan isn't actually saying gold is real. For the purpose of the analogy, the gold represents what is real, which is the substance. The ornament represents the forms, which are unreal. But not all of Bhagavan's, this is very, very, what Bhagavan has taught us is very, very easy to understand, very, very difficult for most of us to accept. The difficulty in understanding Bhagavan is not actually understanding the concepts. You don't have to be a great intellectual genius to understand Bhagavan's teachings. Even a child can understand it. It's so simple. Very, very simple concept. Why we have difficulty understanding it, in spite of its simplicity and clarity, is it's very, very difficult for us to accept. We all want, we are very, well, we're not satisfied by our present state, but we are still eking out enjoyment from our present condition. Most of us, if we ask ourselves, we're not entirely satisfied with our life, but I think most of us are pretty happy with our life. We wouldn't want to end our life. Even people who are suffering from great poverty, disease, who may be in terrible situations, they may be forced to be slaves working 18 hours a day. Very few of them will attempt to commit suicide. Because we prefer to live in misery than not live at all. We're so attached to our life. So that means we're so attached to this state in which we're aware of phenomena. Though we're perfectly happy when we're asleep, somehow we want to keep on coming back to this waking state or dream state and experiencing phenomena. Though the phenomena don't give us unalloyed happiness, they give us some iotas of pleasure amidst the pain, but we still are very attached to it. So Bhagavan is completely undermining, is asking us to reject our belief in the reality of all these things. Most of us are reluctant to do so, so we find it difficult to accept. And if we really are devoted to Bhagavan, if we really want to follow Bhagavan, we have to recognize, yes, we are still attached to this world, but our goal is to give up this attachment. But so long as we're attached to this world, so long as we're attached to ourselves with this person, we're not yet ready to surrender ourselves, to give ourselves wholly to Bhagavan, and thereby to merge back in our source. So, though we may not be yet ready to surrender ourselves entirely, we accept that that is our goal. But we want to try to gain the maturity so that one day we'll be ready to surrender ourselves completely to Bhagavan. And Bhagavan has taught us that practicing this vichara persistently throughout our waking and dream state as much as we can, whenever we don't have to be just sitting in meditation. Throughout the day we should be trying to be self-attentive, be constantly remembering the fundamental self-awareness. This will purify our mind and make us willing to surrender ourselves to Bhagavan. This is our goal. But there were some among Bhagavan's devotees who were devoted to Bhagavan as a god, because they consider Bhagavan as some sort of divine being, incarnation of Subramanya or whatever, they had their own imagination. So they were devoted to Bhagavan as a god, but they didn't like Bhagavan's teachings at all. There was one prominent group of devotees who were constantly opposing Bhagavan's teachings, that is Kavirganta and his followers. When Kavirganta was first shown a translation of nāṇā, someone had one of his followers had translated it into Telugu, from Tamil to Telugu, and he showed it to Kavirganta, hoping Kavirganta would approve his translation. Kavirganta read it and said, "I don't like this at all. I never thought Bhagavan would be guilty of partiality." So they really, really found it difficult to accept Bhagavan's teaching. So when they tried to translate Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, they tried to remove everything that would be against their own beliefs. So when they translated this verse, in this verse, Bhagavan actually uses the word poi, which means unreal. He uses it he uses the word poi twice here, I think, as far as I can see. The word poi twice here, unreal. He emphasizes, first he emphasizes poyyāmañ, the ignorance which is unreal, and he also refers to the ornaments as unreal. But when they translated this verse, they removed this word, they omitted this word unreal altogether. And in Kavirghanta's disciple, Kapali Sastri, wrote a commentary with Kavirghanta's approval, and in his commentary he said, it is, in his introduction, the first 2 or 3 pages of his introduction, he wrote, he didn't use this example of ornaments and gold. He used a parallel example, which is often used in Vedantic texts, which is mud and mud pots. The mud can be formed into, can be shaped into pots of so many different shapes and sizes. Just like gold can be formed in so many ornaments. But according to Advaita, the mud alone is real, the forms, the pots are unreal. Pots come and go, but the mud is what is real. So, but what Kapali Sastri was arguing was, but Brahman has 2 aspects. It has the formal, it has the substance, which is Satchidananda, and it has the formal aspect, which is this world. And both, he tried to argue, are equally real. But in order to have a complete knowledge of Brahman, we have to know the substance and we have to know the form. Because mud never remains without some form. Gold never remains without some form. So just knowing gold or knowing mud is not complete knowledge. You have to know the substance and you have to know form, which it's form, was his argument. And he even went so far as to say in his introduction, therefore it is false and futile to assert that Brahman alone, but the substance alone is real. I'll get this sentence. Why I emphasize this, it shows how very, a lot of people misinterpreted Bhagavan, not knowingly, but simply because they didn't understand. But some people actually deliberately tried to misinterpret Bhagavan. Oh yes. After giving some 2 pages of arguments about this mud and pot, he then says, it is evident then that it is both futile and false to affirm that the substantial truth alone of the world being, Brahman, is real, and that the formal aspect of Brahman as the world is unreal. So basically what he was trying to argue is the world is as real as Brahman. Brahman is the substance, world is the form. Both are equally real. How he was able to make this argument? Because in their translation they had omitted these words unreal. So every word in Bhagavan's verses are very, very important. Why Bhagavan emphasized this word poi, both when talking about aññāna and in the aṇṭṛi, he emphasized the manyness, the many forms, or the many awareness of manyness is unreal. What is real is only the one substance. In the case of gold ornament, the substance is gold. In the case of awareness, the real awareness is only the awareness that is one, that is aware of itself, that is aware of nothing other than itself. That is real awareness. The awareness of other things, the awareness of multiplicity, the awareness that sees the one as many, that is ignorance according to Bhagavan. So these four verses are very, very important because if you read any book on spirituality or anything, people are talking about consciousness, about awareness, and people say, there's somewhere I read, I think it's somewhere, let me see, I think it's in Day by Day somewhere, I read just recently. I can't remember, but anyway, someone asked Bhagavan how to increase awareness. Bhagavan said, you are always aware. There's never any deficit in your awareness. The problem is you're aware of things other than yourself. What you need to do is get rid of the awareness of things other than yourself, and what then remains is the pure awareness that you actually are. So, I mean, we find these things, if we read talks day by day and such books, we can find these gems here and there scattered throughout, but all those gems are brought together and concentrated in a very clear and very emphatic form in Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. So when we read day by day or talks or something, those are some very nice things there. We can never be sure but how accurately these are recorded. Because Bhagavan wasn't talking in English, he was talking in Tamil, and whoever recorded these things recorded it some hours afterwards from memory, so they recorded what they were able to understand. So we can't take those things to be entirely reliable. But Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is what Bhagavan himself has written, and he's written it in poetry, so very, very carefully he's crafted every word. And Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is of anyone who wants to really understand Bhagavan's teachings, Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is the key. There's nowhere else, but a little bit there's a lot of substance in nāṇā. There's also a lot in Upadesundya, and another work in Arunachashtakam. So many places Bhagavan is talking about the same subject, but in no place does Bhagavan give his philosophy in such a complete and coherent manner as he does in Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. And out of the 40 verses of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he devoted 4 particularly to drawing this distinction between real awareness and awareness of other things. And understanding this distinction is very important because, for example, in nāṇā, the first question that Sri Ramana asked Bhagavan was, who am I? And Bhagavan answered very simply, Arivaynā. Arivaynā means awareness alone is I. And Sri Ramana then asked, what is the nature of this awareness? What is the swarupa of this awareness? And Bhagavan said, Arivin swarupam satchidanandam. Or probably Bhagavan didn't even say that. Probably he just replied satchidanandam. Because in those days Bhagavan wasn't talking, he was mostly either writing his replies in sand, in the sand of the sandy floor, or on a slate if Sri Ramana gave him a slate. That was the first question and answer. The first 2 questions and Bhagavan's 2 answers. Sri Ramana later expanded these as what Bhagavan later made into a second paragraph by adding what he had learned in philosophy. I'm not this body, I'm not this prana or this pana, all these things. He expands on Bhagavan's answer, but Bhagavan's actual answer was Arivaynā. When Bhagavan wrote it as an essay, he retained what she. But Bhagavan's actual answer was Arivaynā. When Bhagavan wrote it as an essay, he retained what Sri Ramana had added. But that second paragraph ends with Arivaynā, awareness alone is I, Arivin Sarupam Satchidanandam. Then in the very next sentence he begins, Sava Arivikum, Sava Torikum, Karanamahya Manam Adanginal Jagadrishti Ningam. That means if if mind, which is the cause for all arivu, and all that's all awareness, all knowledge, and all activity, all action, subsides or ceases, the appearance of the world will cease. But if we don't think carefully about it, there's a contradiction here, because firstly he says arivu, awareness alone is I, then he says the mind is the cause for all awareness. Obviously the awareness he's talking about in the first sentence of verse 3, and the awareness he's talking about in the third paragraph, the awareness he's talking about at the end of the previous paragraph is not the same awareness. He's not using the word awareness in the same sense. The distinction is when he says arive nān, as he clarifies in Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, arivu in that context means pure awareness, not awareness of other things, but, and that's why Palayasam, what is the nature of that awareness? Satchidananda. Satchidananda is not awareness of anything. Satchit means awareness of what is, of being. So it's and the nature of the awareness of what is ananda, it's happiness. So that is not awareness of anything. It's awareness. Well, we say awareness of what is, or awareness of oneself, or awareness of being, but what is or being is not an object. The awareness itself is what is. So when he says about the mind being the cause for all awareness and all activity, what he means by awareness there is awareness of other things. So we can infer from what Bhagavan has written here. He's using this word arivu in two different senses. The mind is the awareness that is aware of many things. Our real nature is the awareness that is not aware of anything other than itself. And this distinction is crucial to understanding Bhagavan's teaching correctly. This is crucial because what Bhagavan says is we all take waking and dream to be a state of awareness or a state of knowledge. But according to Bhagavan, it's a state of complete ignorance because it's a knowledge of manyness. We are seeing the one as many. That is ignorance according to Bhagavan. Sleep, on the other hand, which we, from the perspective of our mind, we take sleep to be a state of, I wasn't aware of anything in sleep. It was a state of darkness. It was a state of ignorance. We say so many things about it. I mean, we disparage sleep in so many ways, but according to Bhagavan, sleep is a state of pure awareness. This is a very, very important clue to us when we are trying to investigate and find out what we actually are, because we cannot be anything. We cannot be something that we are at one time and not at another time. But we seem to be at one time but not another time. Now we seem to be this body. If we were really this body, we would have to be aware of ourselves as this body, not only in waking, but also in dream and also in sleep. In dream, we're aware of ourselves as some other body. In sleep, we're not aware of ourselves as any body at all. So the body that we now seem to be is not what we actually are. So what actually are we? If we eliminate everything else, everything that appears and disappears, the only thing that remains always is pure self-awareness. And that is what we experience in sleep. So when we are trying to investigate what we actually are, we should be trying to be aware of that pure self-awareness that we're aware of in sleep. We're trying to extract ourselves from all these phenomena, to extract ourselves from all that we seem to be, and to be aware of what always is. So in what we are trying to do when we are trying to be self-attentive, we are actually trying to be asleep while awake, or be awake while asleep, whichever way we put it. But here in this waking state, we are trying to experience what we experienced while we were asleep. So people ask, what is your experience of practicing self-inquiry? If there's anything we experience, experiences come and go. Anything that comes and goes is not ourself. So people attach a lot of importance to spiritual experiences, spiritual experiences are all a red herring. They're all, they will all mislead us if we follow them. Okay, we may get all sorts of wonderful experiences. We may have a feeling of oneness with the whole world. We may see divine light. We may see vision of Shiva or Shakti or Subramanya or Jesus or Buddha. We may get all sorts of wonderful experiences. But to whom are all these experiences? Bhagavan said seeing God without seeing oneself is manomayamam kakshi. Is seeing only a mental image, a mental vision. It's not real. So what is real it must be what is always present. And what is always present is only self-awareness. So we are always self-aware. But whereas in sleep we're aware only of ourselves, in waking and dream we're aware of many things besides ourselves, and we take ourselves to be one of the phenomena we're aware of. This body is a phenomenon, but it seems to be ourself. This is ignorance. In order to overcome this ignorance and know what we really are, we need to isolate ourselves from everything else and be aware of ourselves just as we were aware of ourselves in sleep. So we have to bring that experience of sleep into this waking state. We have to be trying to isolate ourselves from awareness of all other things and be aware of ourself alone. This is what self-inquiry is about. Self-vichara, self-investigation, whatever we may call it. So why Bhagavan may put so much emphasis distinguishing the real awareness from the awareness of many things, understanding this distinction is essential to understanding the practice of self-investigation. Awareness of anything other than ourselves, however blissful it may be. I was in meditation for 20 minutes, I experienced such peace, but then when I came out of meditation, the peace went away and all these thoughts came. If the peace went away, we don't want such peace, thank you. What is the use of peace that comes and stays with us for 20 minutes and then goes away? Anything that appears will disappear. Once someone asked Bhagavan, if God were to appear before you, what would you ask? Bhagavan said, I would ask him not to appear. I would tell him, I don't want a God who appears and disappears. I want a God who is with me always. So Bhagavan emphasized this so often. If jnana was something, everyone thinks jnana or moksha or whatever nirvana, whatever we're seeking, is something we're going to experience in the future. Bhagavan said, if jnana was something that will come in future, it will also go in future. Such a jnana is of no use to us. But real jnana is what is always present. That is why he said in the first sentence of this verse, ñāṇamām tāṉēmey. Oneself who is jnana alone is real. Jnana means that pure awareness. So today I think I've talked quite a long time, but it's just this is such an important aspect of Bhagavan's teachings. It's so important. If we understand this, it's a key to understanding so many. The thing with Bhagavan's teachings are very, very simple, but it's like a jigsaw. Everything fits together very neatly and coherently. But we've got to fit all the pieces into place in order to get a full and coherent picture. If we understand Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu properly, whatever spiritual question we may be asked, we can answer very easily. We don't have to be, I don't claim anything as far as spiritual, I'm still a simple aspirant on the path. I'm the same as everyone else. But by understanding Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, I find whatever questions people ask me, it's so easy to answer them. Because all the answers are given there in seed form. Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu isn't the only important work of Bhagavan's. There are so many other important works, and it's important to also understand Nāṇā, Upadesha Undya, Arunachya Panchakam, all these things. It's important to understand them. But the key to everything, the most fundamental and important teachings of Bhagavan are these verses of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. If we've understood this, we've understood everything. And whatever we can reply to any philosophers, any skeptics, any atheists, any people of any other school of any religious belief or anything. We've got, Bhagavan has provided us with such strong arguments. But of course Bhagavan hasn't given us these arguments first to go and argue with the world. In fact, he condemns that very clearly in the second and third verses. It's not for arguing with the world that he's given us these things. Why I say, why he gives us all this, our belief, our trust in Bhagavan need not be shaken. Whatever philosophers may come with arguments, or whatever atheists may come, or whatever people of other religious beliefs may come and argue with us, we are on unshakable ground. If we've understood Bhagavan correctly, nothing will need shake us. And also, so nothing, no outward argument that people may give us will shake us from our point. And when we go within, we'll have a clear understanding of what it is we're looking for. We're not looking for any experience. We're not looking for any object. We're not looking for any phenomena. People say, I tried to practice with self-inquiry, but I can't find the I. Who is the I who can't find the I? I've had two eyes, one eye can't find the other eye. I mean, you can see there's so many, I mean, this sort of thing comes so often in talks and places like that. But people are still asking these questions. I don't understand. What is this self-inquiry? How can you find the I? Where is the I? What is the I? Is it on the right side, or is it here, there? I mean, people have so many imagination. It is what is always there, what we're always aware of. It's not an object. I mean, the trouble is language. Language language developed for us to communicate about the external world, about phenomena. Language is very useful for our interaction with the world, for vivahara. Within Vivaharika Satya, language is very useful. But when we try to use this Vivaharika language to describe that which is beyond all Vivahara, beyond all phenomena, it just doesn't work. So that's why Bhagavan, a lot of what Bhagavan said, Bhagavan often talked metaphorically, because metaphor is the only way. So we have to see not only the words that Bhagavan has used, we have to understand what is behind those words. For example, sometimes Bhagavan said, your effort can take you only so far. That means your effort in going within can take you only so far. When you reach that point, some power will rise from within and drag you within. Are we to take it when Bhagavan is talking literally, but there's something going to rise and pull us within? This is poetic language. Bhagavan is a poet. He talks in the language of poetry, but the language of poetry is sometimes the best way of describing that which cannot be adequately described in words. So there's not literally anything, because what is real doesn't rise or subside. But from a poetic point of view, when we get engulfed in that absolute clarity of pure self-awareness, poetically we can describe it came up and swallowed us, as if some big shark had jumped out of the ocean and caught hold of us and pulled us down within. I mean, this is all the language of poetry, analogy, metaphor. But it's the only way of explaining it. So we have to read Bhagavan's words, but we have to see beyond the words, so what Bhagavan is pointing at. We shouldn't take it too literally. Bhagavan says diving within. Some people imagine you have to dive within, have to go down into the heart on the right hand side. People have all sorts of imagination, because we take Bhagavan's words too literally. We have to understand the inner meaning of Bhagavan's words. In Advaita philosophy, or Sanskrit, in philosophy in general, they make a distinction between Vachyata and Lakshyata. Vachyata means the meaning of the words. Vachya means the word, Artha means the meaning. Lakshyata means the target meaning, or the intended meaning. So we don't have to, we shouldn't just understand the words that are there. Like in Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu, Bhagavan is using this word tāṉ. So often tāṉ means oneself. In the same verse, in the same sentence, he uses tāṉ. He says oneself who is the base of oneself. What does that mean? How can oneself be the base of? He's using the same word tāṉ to refer to the ego and to what we actually are. It's also this word arivu. He's using the same word arivu to refer both to ourselves as we actually are. Both to refer to awareness of many things and to the real awareness, which is awareness of ourselves. So we always have to read between the lines. We have to understand the implied meaning of Bhagavan's teachings. We can understand this once we this is why it's said in the study of Advaita and the path to attain self-knowledge is sometimes said to be threefold: Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Sravana literally means hearing, but it doesn't actually have to be reading or studying. That is exposing ourselves to the words of Bhagavan, you can say. That is Sravana. But merely reading, we can read Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu, we can daily get up in the morning and recite Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu for 20 minutes and then come back at night and recite Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu for 20 minutes. That's good. It's good. I don't say reciting Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu isn't good. But it's not the mere repetition of the words. We have to do manana. Manana means we have to think about it critically. We have to think, what does it mean? Why he's using the same word arivu? He seems to be using it in two different senses. We have to think deeply about it, and we have to have a coherent understanding of it. All of Bhagavan's teachings, as I said, they're very, very simple. The essence of Bhagavan's teachings is very simple, but we've got to fit all the pieces together, and then it's perfectly clear. If we don't fit it all together, we'll have our thinking will be incoherent, and we'll easily jump to wrong conclusions. So we have to think deeply about it. And why is it necessary to think deeply about it? Because to the extent that we clearly understand what Bhagavan is talking about, we'll be able to understand how to put it into practice. The more we understand Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu and other writings of Bhagavan, the clearer the path will become to us. The easier it will be for us to put it into practice. Because it's a very, very subtle path, Bhagavan's path. And he says in Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu, in one verse, I think in verse 23, I think, he says, Nun Matiyal. And in a later verse, he says, Kunda Matiyal. Nun Matiyal means by a subtle intellect, investigating by subtle intellect. And Kunda Matiyal means a very sharp or sharpened or acute or keen intellect. So it is in a sense an intellectual process, but not intellectual in the usual sense in which we use intellectual. Intellect, actually the English word intellect means distinguishing between. It means very much the same as vijnana. Vijnana, V means the distinction, distinguishing. So vijnana and intellect actually mean very much the same. I think intellect means something like, I can't remember exactly, but it does intellect, intelligence. It all comes from a Latin root, which means distinguishing between. So the whole process of self-investigation, we are distinguishing what is real from what is unreal, what is pure awareness from what is awareness of otherness. So it is in that sense, it's a very, very extremely subtle intellectual process. When we say someone is a great intellect, they're a person who is able to see the truth in things. Like if we read some book, a very, very complex book on philosophy, it may be very difficult for us to understand, because the ideas are complex. But a person who is a brilliant philosopher will be able to read and understand all that. So it's that ability to, or a brilliant mathematician. So some people are able to solve a mathematical problem in a few seconds. Other people can spend hours scratching their head, and with pen and paper they still can't work it out because they don't see the way to a solution. If we know the way, we get there very quickly. So it's a matter of seeing. When, like, if someone says, I don't understand, why does 2 plus 2 equals 4? How can we explain? I mean, we know it's logical that 2 plus 2 equals 4. But if someone is not able to grasp it, they're not able to see it. We can see it. I mean, it's once clear to us, 2 plus 2 must equal 4. So the intellect is a matter of seeing the truth in things, seeing what is correct, what is false. So in that sense, this Atma-vichara is the subtlest use of the intellect. It's using that discriminating, distinguishing power of the mind to go deep within and to separate ourselves from all that appears and disappears, from all phenomena, to find out what is the underlying basis of all these things. Because the underlying basis of all these things is pure self-awareness. That is the only thing that doesn't appear and disappear. Ego appears and disappears, mind appears and disappears, everything, all phenomena appear and disappear. But there is something that is constant. What is that thing that is constant? That is I. I am awake. I was dreaming. I was asleep. That is the one thing that is constant throughout all these states, is I. I is a pronoun that denotes our self-awareness. That is what is real. That is what we've got to distinguish. In Sanskrit there's a term, drik drisya viveka, distinguishing the seer from the seen. That is, we now whatever is seen is unreal. So the thoughts, whatever appears is something that is seen. So even the mind or intellect is something drisya. What is it that is aware of all these things? Going deep back inside. And when we get back to the original pure awareness, we'll find it's not aware of anything except itself, because nothing else actually exists. So Bhagavan's path is a very, very subtle path. So it requires great clarity of understanding to follow Bhagavan's path correctly. That clarity is greatly helped by understanding Bhagavan's original writings. But we won't be able to understand Bhagavan's original writing unless we put it into practice. Because when we're putting it into practice, we're turning our attention back to the light in our own heart. And that light is what gives light to the intellect and enables us to understand the meaning of Bhagavan's words. So the more we practice, the more we try to put into practice what Bhagavan has taught us, the clearer his words will become to us. Sorry, I've talked for a very long time. You may have questions to ask.
Thank you, Michael. So I think it's a really good discussion. And one of the things you mentioned, just wanted to reiterate, Michael was pointing out how people have speeches. We talked about Kavya and actually the middle of the Ḍāmpalavum.
Well, we don't have to be so worried about those people because they're deliberately misunderstood. What we have to be more concerned about, I mean, if we shouldn't actually be concerned about anything other than ourselves, but I mean, there are many people who want to understand Bhagavan but don't understand. These are the people, I mean, people like Kavya we can't help, because if someone doesn't want to understand Bhagavan, there's nothing we can do to convince them. But there are many people who want to understand Bhagavan but are not able to understand because of poor translations, but we can't just blame poor translations. We have to have Bhagavan's path is a path of vichara. Vichara means investigation. We have inquiry. We have to have an inquiring, a curious mind. We have to ask questions. I was with Sadhwan for 8 years, and I was relentless in asking questions. He sometimes used to tell me, but he said, I know a lot of our Indian friends feel that you're very disrespectful, the way you go on asking questions and asking questions. But actually, this is the way. He said, one problem with a lot of our, in this country, people have a respect for elders and for people they consider as wise and everything. So they don't ask, people say, I got this doubt, I got that doubt, but that's not the way of questioning. You've got to go deep into it, and you've got to question, find out the connections and question deeply. And often I would hear Sadhguru giving an explanation to people, and I'd wonder why he's explaining like this, because he explained to me differently. And afterwards I would ask him, why did you explain like that? Because when I asked you about it, you said differently to me. Then he said, we have to answer to people at the level at which they're questioning. If we give deeper answer than if we go deeper than their questions, we lose them. So we have to answer at the level of their question. And he pointed out to me so many things. Why Bhagavan said this to people? It's because that is the level at which those people were. If people question them, that's why often we don't get very useful things out of talks, because most of the people who were asking questions in talks were not going very deep. They weren't asking very deep questions. The deeper the question, the deeper the answer. And Bhagavan illustrated this once when he was once Bhagavan told the story of Dakshinamurti, and he said the four Sanakadi rishis came to him, and when they sat at his feet, they began to ask him questions. And he was very happy to hear their questions, because they were very shrewd and very pertinent questions. So he very patiently answered their questions. And for 1 full year, he was answering their questions. And for every answer he gave, they asked a very relevant question, not like in talks, where Bhagavan gives an answer and they jump to some other subject and ask some other question. It was a true Guru Sishya Sambhasha. It was a true that for every answer he gave, they asked a relevant question. And they were going very deep into the subject. After 1 year, Dakshinamurti understood. They've understood so clearly, but so long as I continue answering the words, they will continue asking questions. So their ignorance will never end in this way. So much love and compassion was welling out, Bhagavan described it, so much love and compassion was welling out of the heart of Dakshinamurti for these four very ripe aspirants. But he understood, but he had to suppress that love and compassion. Bhagavan said he had to close the valve of that compassion, and he had to merge back into silence, because that was the only way of dealing the final blow. Because they were so mature, as soon as Dakshinamurti withdrew back into himself and merged in silence, they also merged in silence. When Bhagavan once told this story, Murugan said to Bhagavan, but Bhagavan, in no book is it ever said that Dakshinamurti ever answered any question. Bhagavan said, no, it's not written like that in any book. This is what actually happened. And Murugan understood. Then Bhagavan has to be one of 5 people. He has to either be one of the 4 Sanakadi rishis, or he has to be Dakshinamurti. Let's assume he's Dakshinamurti, because but there Bhagavan's talking about how the questioning has to go very deep, because if we want to understand deeply, a lot of things Bhagavan said is just according to what people can grasp. And a lot of things Bhagavan said are very traditional beliefs. Like people ask, what's the difference between samadhi and sleep? Bhagavan often used to say, in sleep the mind is merged in darkness, in samadhi it's merged in light. But when I read that, I asked Sadhguru, but Bhagavan says that sleep is a state of pure self-awareness, so why does he say that in sleep the mind is merged in darkness? Sadhguru said, it's because people didn't ask him that question, but he gave that answer. If they had asked that question, he would have said, yes, there's no difference between sleep and samadhi, and nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa samadhi is just a state of manolaya like sleep. It's a state where the mind is merged back into its source, which is light. There's no darkness inside. In sleep, there's darkness from the perspective of the ego, not from the But when we merge within, we're merging in light. We're not merging in darkness. As this ego, we don't remember it because we weren't there in that light. As ego, the ego wasn't there in light, but we were there in light. We are that light. That light is what we actually are. So many things, the more deeply we question, the deeper the answers we get. If we don't answer questions deeply enough, we won't get such deep answers. And it's not just, this isn't just, as I said, it's not just an intellectual process of asking smart questions and getting smart answers. It's a matter of going deep into the subject and understanding very clearly which is what guides us when we go within. Yes, sorry, you were just asking?
Yeah, Michael, my question is something new for me was you kind of referenced it when you were talking about your own meditation. So the new phrase for me is self-attention. Yeah. And so since we have language, what's the distinction between meditation and self-attention?
You can meditate on anything. You can put a candle in front of you and meditate on the light of the candle. You can imagine some form of God and meditate upon it. You can meditate on points of the body. Meditation simply means thinking. You can think about anything. You can meditate on a Coca-Cola can, like Coca-Cola. That's all meditation means. But every meditation, or at least most meditation, has an object. You're meditating on something. But Bhagavan sometimes Bhagavan said, don't meditate, just be. You're not to think of anything. But sometimes Bhagavan distinguished self-inquiry from dhyana. Self-inquiry means atma-vichara from dhyana. Dhyana, because dhyana means meditation. Generally, when people talk about meditation, they're talking about meditating on something. But Bhagavan also used the term in Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, in Nāṇā, swarupa dhyana. Swarupa literally means one's own form. It means one, but the implied meaning is one's real nature. So swarupa dhyana means meditating on oneself, self-meditation. So instead of meditating on any object, we're meditating on the meditator. Who is it who is meditating? Meditate on he who is meditating, on that which is meditating, on the mind, in other words, the ego. Meditate on the meditator. See the seer. That is the real meditation that Bhagavan has taught us. That is completely different to all other types of meditation. What distinguishes atma-vichara from all other types of sadhana? All other types of sadhana entail attending to something other than ourselves. In atma-vichara, we're not attending to anything other than ourselves. Well, other types of meditation, either they're attending to something other than ourselves, or they're trying to withdraw attention from everything. But how to withdraw attention from everything? There are some yogic techniques like pranayama and things. You can actually withdraw the attention from everything. What happens? You fall asleep. Or, to give it a fancy term, you go into nirvikalpa samadhi, which is just sleep. Someone waking up from nirvikalpa samadhi may feel that was different to sleep, because in sleep it was darkness, in nirvikalpa samadhi it's light. That's how it may seem to the yogi who's come out of nirvikalpa samadhi, but according to Bhagavan, actually the same light that we experienced in nirvikalpa samadhi we experience in sleep every day. There's no difference, no actual difference. It's just a seeming difference from the perspective of the mind in the waking state. But our aim is not to withdraw our attention from everything else, nor is our aim to attend to our aim is not to attend to anything other than ourselves, nor is it to withdraw our attention from everything else. We do have to withdraw our attention from everything else, but that is the byproduct. That is not the main aim. Our aim is to be, even to say attend to ourselves, it makes ourself sound like an object. So if we want to use slightly more subtle language, rather than saying paying attention to oneself, being self-attentive. It's a state of being attentive, not of paying attention. because you can pay attention to objects. You can't pay attention to yourself. Well, you can, but I mean, you're using attention. Yourself is not an object. So we need to distinguish between attending to an object and attending to the subject, oneself. That's why a lot of people say, I can't find any eye to meditate on, because they want some object. Even great philosophers, there's one of the most renowned philosophers of Western philosophy was a person called David Hume, who lived a few hundred years ago in the 18th century, mid-18th century. In one of his things, nowadays they talk about Hume's bundle theory of self. Because what he said is, when he looked inside to find himself, he couldn't find anything. All he could find was perceptions, feelings, thoughts, and everything. He couldn't find anything as himself. So he's written in his thing, other people may claim that there's some principle called the self, but I cannot find any such principle in myself. And if you read that passage, it's a very famous passage of Western philosophy. It's often quoted in books. Even in undergraduate philosophy, everyone will study that passage. And people compare it to Buddhism. They say, well, his theory is very similar to Buddhist theory of no self and everything. But if you read the passage in the light of Bhagavan's teachings, he's talking absolute gibberish. He says, I can't find any self in myself. Who is the I? Who is the self in which he can't find it? The myself in which he can't find it? It's absolutely meaningless what he's saying. But it's taken to be great philosophy. Because people don't understand. That's why Bhagavan, once we understood Bhagavan's teachings, so much other philosophy seems absolute child's play. It may seem maybe very complicated and written very high language and so many difficult concepts and everything, but it's complete gibberish, a lot of it. Whereas Bhagavan has simplified it so much. When people ask Bhagavan, I can't find that eye. Bhagavan said, are there two eyes? One eye can't find the other eye. What are you looking for? It's only yourself you're looking for. You are always there. You just have to see yourself. How can we see ourselves? Obviously we can't see ourselves. It's not a matter of going in the mirror and seeing our reflection or something. When he says see yourself, he means be aware of yourself as you actually are. So it is Atma-vichara is a very, very subtle process. And if you ask me what is self-attention, I myself, I got an inkling of what is self-attention. I don't know what is self-attention. Because if I knew what is self-attention, I would know what I am. The reason we practice self-attention, the reason we try to be self-attentive, is to learn what self-attention is. How to practice Atma-vichara? Try it and see. You will learn to practice Atma-vichara. Nobody can explain to you how to investigate yourself. You have to investigate yourself, and by investigating yourself, you'll learn how to investigate yourself. Can anyone explain to you how to ride a bicycle? You can read about balance, this and that, but however much it's explained to you, you won't be able to learn ride a bicycle until you get on a bicycle and fall so many times, and eventually you'll get the knack of balancing yourself. Exactly the same with self-inquiry. We have to balance ourselves in a state between the forgetfulness of sleep and the thoughtfulness of waking. We have to remain balanced in that state of Jagrat Sushupti, the wakeful sleep, Samadhi. That is the razor's edge that is referred to in the Upanishads. So we have to remain balanced on that razor's edge, neither attending to other things, nor giving up attending to anything. Because when we sleep, we withdraw our attention from everything else, because we're tired, and we merge into sleep. The yogis who go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, they by their pranayama and other techniques, they manage to withdraw their attention from everything else, and therefore to go into that blissful state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But they don't know themselves, because they come out again. That's the state of Manolaya. If you go into that state, you will sooner or later come out of it. Because we still have the desire. We need to destroy the ego, not just the ego is not just a temporary subsidence of the ego we're looking for. It's complete annihilation of the ego. That can be brought about only by self-attentiveness. There's a Tamil Advaitic text called Kaivalya Navanitam. Bhagavan sometimes used to refer to it, and the ashram produced, I don't know if they still publish it, they used to publish an English translation of it. I don't know how good the English translation is. But in that, in Kaivalya Navanitam, in one place it is said, Jnana cannot destroy aññāna. Jnana is not inimicable to aññāna. And the reason that it says that is, we are always self-aware. But in spite of being self-aware, we are still self-ignorant. So merely being self-aware is not sufficient to destroy our self-ignorance. They therefore say what is the terminology that's used in Kaivalyam. It said, Jnana cannot destroy ignorance. Only vritti jnana can destroy ignorance. It's not. Most people don't understand very clearly what is meant by vritti jnana. Vritti jnana means vritti is a term which it's a Sanskrit term, but it's very difficult to translate into English. It's often in many contexts it means thought, but it doesn't only mean thought. But what is meant actually by vritti jnana is we are always self-aware. There's never a moment when we're not self-aware. But throughout the waking and dream state, we are mostly negligently self-aware. That is, though we are self-aware, we are more interested in attending to things other than ourselves than in attending to ourselves. Because this world is a very interesting place, and there's every morning the news is there. We can read the newspapers in the morning. We can watch the news in the evening, and things are going on in our office, and dramas are going on in our family, and the whole life is full of drama. I mean, we live in the midst of a big drama. So many interesting things are there, and we get pleasure from this or from that and thing. So our attention is constantly going out towards things other than ourselves. So though we are always self-aware, we are negligently self-aware. We are not interested in this self-awareness, we're more interested in other things. So what is meant by vritti jnana is not, atma-jnana means self-awareness. So the atma-jnana is always there, but we are, even now, we are experiencing atma-jnana. But because we're not attending to it, we're attending to other things, we overlook that atma-jnana, that self-awareness. Vritti jnana means the attentive self-awareness. Instead of just being ordinarily self-aware, negligently self-aware as we always are, we need to be attentively self-aware. And it's only that attentive self-awareness that will destroy the ignorance. That is what is meant in Kaivalya. It's the attentive self-awareness. So that attentive self-awareness, another way of saying it is self-attentiveness or self-attention. It's not that oneself is an object which we can attend to. It is we have to be self-attentive. We have to be attentively self-aware. Is that does that answer your question at all, or is that helpful?
Yes.
What I said?
You answered the question at my level.
Okay. Well, I'm also at the same level, so we're well suited. I haven't gone deeper yet.
So, any other questions?
I have a quick one.
Yes.
Michael, in the beginning you talked about the gross body, the subtle body,
yes,
which I can relate to. But when you say causal body, what is it? Why is it called the causal body? It doesn't give me a sense of what it is from that term. I know it's used very often.
Okay. Actually, according to Bhagavan, the original cause for everything is the ego. But why the ego is, how the ego is able to take the ego, Bhagavan says it, comes into existence by grasping a form, that is, by taking a body as itself. How the ego is able to take a body as itself? Because it is self-ignorant. Without first covering itself with self-ignorance, it cannot cover itself with a body, with a physical body or a mind. So the underlying basis of this, I mean, but the term used is body, but the term body includes the physical form, the life in the body, the mind and the intellect. All these are included in the body, and the subtlest level of all is this self-ignorance. So the self-ignorance is called the causal body. But who is self-ignorant? It's not Atman. These sheaths never cover Atman. They cover the ego. And the ego doesn't exist without covering itself with these sheaths, because it's a formless phantom.
So that's what is Bhagavan refers to as Irul, right? In verse.
Yes, in verse 22, I think, of India. Yes, Irul. It's often called darkness. With self-ignorance, I mean, self-ignorance is a darkness. But what I used to say, in order to see a picture on the cinema screen, you not only need the limited light from the projector, you also need a background darkness. The limited light in the projector is the mind light, and the darkness is the mind's self-ignorance. So Bhagavan sometimes used to give an analogy. In old days in India, there used to be cinemas. They would go around villages and they would put up a tent, and they would show a film in the tent. And this was the way in which villagers could see the latest movies. So Bhagavan used to say, if the wind comes and carries away the tent, I mean the covering, the sunlight will flood in, and the picture on the screen will be swallowed by the bright sunlight. Because without the background darkness, the picture cannot say. Likewise with this world picture, it's because of the darkness of self-ignorance that we're able to project this world picture. And Bhagavan also used to say, without the background darkness of sleep, you cannot dream. So now we are dreaming. The background darkness is that self-ignorance. That is the sleep. So we have to destroy that ignorance. How can we destroy the ignorance? Only by being aware of ourselves as we actually are. How can we be aware of ourselves as we actually are? Only by vritti ñāṇa. That's by being attentively self-aware.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
And see, this concept of the causal body,
Yes.
or Irul, is so beautifully explained by Bhagavan, and of course with the commentaries of Sadhguru and Michael. I just didn't get that clarity when I read Viveka Chudamani. In the Anandamaya course, I was just so confused.
Yes.
I just couldn't understand it.
Misnomer, because the reason it's called the Anandamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha means the sheaf forms of happiness. The reason it is called Anandamaya Kosha is because the general concept is, when all the other sheaths disappear, the one sheath that remains in sleep is the Anandamaya Kosha, or causal body. But that, though Bhagavan sometimes used to explain things in those terms, actually he is indicated to us, in sleep is not a state of ignorance, it's a state of pure self-awareness. The ego, for whom is the self-ignorance? Who is it who is covered by the Anandamaya? Well, all the five koshas. It's only the ego. So when the ego ceases to exist in sleep, there is no causal body remaining in sleep. It's often said, I mean, the sheaths are divided up, there are five sheaths and they're divided into three bodies. There's the causal body, the subtle body, and the gross body. And because Advaitic texts were in answer to questions asked at so many different levels, in many Advaitic texts it said, in the waking state, we experience ourselves as the gross body, stula sarira. In dream, we experience what the body we experience as I is the sukshma sarira, subtle body. In sleep, it's the causal body. But this doesn't stand according to Bhagavan's teaching, because according to Bhagavan, firstly, there is absolutely no difference between waking and dream. When we are dreaming, we seem to be awake. Everything that happens in dream seems as real as while we're dreaming, it seems as real as everything that happens in waking seems while we're awake. So actually there's no difference between waking and dream. So if the body we experience now as I is the gross body, in dream we also feel the body is physical. It's as physical as this body. So there's no distinction between waking and dream. So in both waking and dream, we take all 5 sheaths to be ourselves. We're aware of a physical form as ourselves. We're aware of that physical form being alive, breathing and heartbeat and everything. Even our dream body has a heart that's beating and we're breathing and everything. If we fall in water, we'll feel we can't breathe. We have to come up to the surface in dream. That all seems very real to us. And there's a mind and there's an intellect. All these are there in both waking and dream. And there's an underlying darkness of self-ignorance, which is the causal body. So all 5 sheaths are present in both waking and dream. In sleep, the ego isn't there. Then for whom are any of the 5 sheaths? For whom is a causal body in sleep? The reason it is said there's a causal body in sleep, because people ask, okay, if the ego doesn't exist in sleep, then why does it come out? How does it come back into existence in waking state? We may as well ask, how did the ego come into existence in the first place? Whenever people ask Bhagavan how the ego came into existence, how Maya appears, Bhagavan used to say that is an invalid question. Because if you ask how did the ego come into existence? Why did the ego exist? Why is there Maya? You are assuming that the ego exists. You're assuming that Maya exists. According to Bhagavan, there is no Maya, there is no ego. The ego seems to exist so long as we're aware of things other than ourselves. If we investigate this ego, we find that there's no such thing at all. If there's no ego, then nothing else exists. So to say why did the ego originally come into existence is an invalid question, because it's based on the assumption that the ego exists now. If we investigate there's no ego, so the question is irrelevant. But in exactly the same way, why did the ego come out to sleep again? It's again assuming that the ego exists. First investigate. Bhagavan used to say, you first go and find that ego and bring it to me, and then I'll explain about it, how it came into existence, why it came into existence. First go and find the culprit and bring him here.
Right.
None of us have yet found this ego, have we? But as Bhagavan says, Tejana Altum Pitigam, if we look for it, it takes flight. It seems to exist only when we're looking elsewhere. We seem to be an ego only when we're looking at other things. In sleep, we stop looking at other things, we stop seeming to be the ego. Ego has no substantial existence of its own. So we don't need an explanation for why the ego comes out of sleep. Just like we don't need an explanation for why it came into existence in the first place. What we need is to find out, does it exist here and now? Investigate it and you'll find it never existed in the first place.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Can I just say one other thing?
Sure.
Because Bhagavan said the ego is unreal, this again, Bhagavan teachings are misinterpreted in so many ways. There's a lot of people nowadays, a lot of would-be gurus, the so-called neo-Advaitins, who say, oh, Bhagavan said there's no ego, so there's nothing for us to worry about. That is a complete misunderstanding. Bhagavan, most of Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu is about the ego. So why Bhagavan wrote so much about the ego in Uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu? Bhagavan doesn't say the ego actually exists. He acknowledges from our perspective the ego seems to exist. that which sees all these other things is the ego, Bhagavan says. Other things don't exist independent of the ego that sees them. So the ego certainly seems to exist, but if you investigate it, you'll find it doesn't actually exist. But so long as we're seeing other things, to say, oh, all this world is real, but the ego, there's no ego, so nothing for us to do, no need for any atma-vichara or meditation or anything. We can just all you have to do is come to my my 2-week self-realization intensive, pay me $10,000, and then you'll be liberated. Nothing to worry about. It's a big business. I mean, people are minting. Making millions of dollars out of this spiritual business. How can anyone sell these things? What Bhagavan has given us to us freely, anyone who charges any money for talking about Bhagavan's teachings or talking about spirituality, they're frauds. Because what has been given to us freely, how can we then go and sell to others? What Bhagavan has shared his teaching freely with the whole world. If we then go and charge money, I will teach you how to do self-inquiry. If you come to me and pay me $150 an hour, I'll have a Skype session with you. I mean, these things are going on there. If you search the internet, you'll find all sorts of things. There's so many people who are there to eager to guide you, provided you pay them sufficient money. This is all the play of the ego. But we don't have to worry about these other egos. The ego we have to worry about is our own ego. Who is the ego who sees all these others who are masquerading as gurus?